Hi, everybody. I'm Kathleen Byram, and I'm the author of Conversations with Donkey, a Bipolar Journey. I'd like to talk to you today about what it's like to go to the Psych Ward. I think it's a subject that a lot of people would be curious about, but they're too polite to ask. So I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to give you a trigger warning first, because it could be upsetting to some people. I'm going to talk about what got me in there and what happened in there. And I don't want anyone to be upset. So be warned ahead of time that this is what we're talking about. It's also too much information, but that's me. Okay. The reason it happened was because my father and I got into an argument. Now, I don't know if I would call it an argument. I'd call it more like a fight, but it wasn't physical. So I don't know if that's a fight or not. But basically, he showed his colors of being disrespectful toward me as a human being because he thinks I'm his daughter, or thought I was his daughter. It was like I was his dog to order around and treat shabbily, which is what he did. He treated me shabbily at a lot of times. Sometimes he didn't, but that's for another time. Anyway, we got into it, and I was so furious at the way he treated me that I went into my room and closed my door. And we were drinking. We were both drunk. And I continued to drink and got very, very drunk. And I just want to say that this whole time that this happened, God never occurred to me. I never thought, I'll pray to God, I'll ask God for help, anything. When they say drinking is not wise, it's true. It's a slippery slope. If you can have one or two drinks without wanting more, that's great. More power to you. But being a drunk is dangerous spiritually, and other reasons, of course. But I digress. So, back to what happened in my bedroom. This is where I want to give the trigger warning again. I went into the bathroom and I found a safety razor, which is an ironic name because I went and got some pliers from my jewelry making kit and pried off the head and got the blade out, and I used it to cut my arm. It was harder than I expected. It was not easy to cut myself. The pain was not the most important thing of what happened either. The pain was secondary. It was just a matter of being able to do it that was hard, it seems, in retrospect. But I did it, and I didn't do it thoroughly, and I was very, very drunk, and I thought, I'll just lay here and die. And I closed my eyes and went to sleep. Well, I woke up in the morning, and I was furious to be alive. And I did not think I should be acting that way. And I knew that I needed to call the hospital or go to the hospital. And I knew that I shouldn't be driving because I was drunk and I was cut in the wrist. And I thought, I can't call an ambulance. I just can't. Not for myself. It's like Brian Regan says, will you come get me? I'm just laying here on the floor. It it didn't feel, it felt bogus. Like that would be a bogus act on my part. I didn't respect myself enough. Who can blame me? Anyway, I got on the computer and started looking around and stuff, and I was thinking about having to go to work that morning. I was a courier, and I didn't think I should be going to work. I thought I should be going to the hospital, and finally I just thought, all right, screw it, I'm going to drive to the hospital. Had a few more drinks to brace myself, got in the car and went, bloody and all, didn't even cover up my arm. I got there safely, thank God I didn't hit anyone or have an accident. But I remember before I could get in, I had to go through the parking garage and park, and I was confused. I didn't know how to get into the parking garage properly. And I sat there and I had a meltdown in the car, like a little mental breakdown. And I just sat there like this at the steering wheel. When I finally looked up, there were all these people in cars around me waiting patiently for me to move. No one honked. No one said a word, no one yelled. They just sat and waited patiently. And I somehow, my mind cleared and I was able to get inside and park and go into the building, the ER. Going into the ER was a kind experience. I really thought they were going to look at my arm with disgust. In fact, years before, my husband looked at my arm that I had tried to cut and took it and said, "Did you do that to yourself?" And then took my arm and shoved it away. I think maybe subconsciously that was driving me because I was afraid of how they would treat me when they saw me. I needn't have worried. They were so kind. They put me in a little room all by myself. It was like an exam room instead of a regular ER room, and I was able to be in there privately without being bothered by any sounds or people trying to talk to me, patients or whatever. And so I laid there and cried. And I asked them when I first came in if they would call my mother and tell her where I was. And they said yes. And I waited all day for someone to come, for my family to come. And no one ever came. And near around 4 o'clock, I asked, and I was told, no, we don't do that. And so I asked if it was possible for me to make a call, and they said, sure, and they brought a phone in for me and said I could use it as long as I wanted. And I called Mom, and I was afraid. And she was so kind. So very kind, but she was making dinner and she couldn't stop in the middle of it and come and see me. So she said she would come the next day when I was in the psych ward, and they took me in the ambulance up to Woodland. I cried the whole time. I was just abject with misery, if that's the right word. Abject misery. I think that's the right word. It was a horrible feeling, and the person in the ambulance with me was making little sounds of comfort and sorriness, and they were going, oh, almost like it was to themselves. Oh, when they heard me crying, and somehow that was a little bit comforting, hearing that someone was caring about what was happening to me. And they were so good to me. Everyone was so kind and so good. And they took me to the hospital. When I got to the hospital, they put me in the gurney, laying flat. Or maybe I was already in the gurney and it was shortened into the ambulance. I don't know. But they took me into the psych ward. And there were people. And I don't mean a bunch of nurses. I mean a bunch of patients were standing around there in the main room where the nurse's desk was, and that's where they wheeled me in. And I'm laying there, and I'm feeling very vulnerable. And people gathered around me. I'm surprised that the nurses allowed that, but they did. They gathered around me. It was almost like the little picture of the turtle upside down in the pond, and the other turtles all slowly swim up and converge around it, and they turn the turtle over because it was on its back and it couldn't get up, and they flip the turtle over and help it. And it kind of felt like that, them circling around me. It felt like they cared. And someone helped me down off the gurney and gave me a chair, and I said, oh, I can't fit in that because of my butt being too big. And she said, oh, you're too tall. And I think I probably cried about that too. I thought that was so sweet. And they got me another chair that I could sit in without arms on it. The first thing that happened was this little woman. She was African American, and that was important to me because I know that African Americans don't get treated like they should always. And so her situation was particularly important to me, and she came to me and she said that she had been abused in the hospital. And I gave her advice to report it. And she said she would take my advice. And I felt that I had done something helpful. I tried to give her comfort and help her. And I felt there was something about that was magical inside that helped me by helping her. And the people there, they didn't harass me when I came in to sit down at the table to eat. Everyone was quiet and sat around me, and they didn't ask me a bunch of questions or bug me. They were just quiet at first. They were feeling me out, I think, to see what I was like. and I was quiet and not very happy. And I might have even sat there and cried while eating. I don't know. But that stuff changed quickly. Those people loved me, and they treated me so good. And the nurses were kind, and everyone was kind. And I had my own room, which I was lucky about, because other people shared a room. But I got this bedroom that had only one bed in it, and it was a big room. And I got to have that with my own bathroom, too. Of course, there's no tub. It's a shower. But that was nice. And I would try to sleep in there, and I had a big window to look out of, and I wondered if people had tried to get out that window before, but I didn't have any reason to try to get out that window. And they would come to the door and tap at it and ask if I would come out and play games and talk and visit. They wanted to be friends with me. And I felt that those people loved me, and I loved them. And there was this one lady who thought I was her daughter, and it was spooky because she would come when I was trying to sleep, and she would creep in to the bed, next to the bed. And I would suddenly startle and see her standing there. And I had to keep telling her over and over that I wasn't her daughter. And finally I went and talked to the nurses. And someone came out and had to sit in front of my door so that poor lady wouldn't come in and harass me about being her daughter. That was bad. I had forgotten about that until now. And then one time, the students came in and wanted to talk to us about our conditions. And I got to talk to a lady about Cheeseland and how I was the donkey. And I told her all my delusional thinking and everything, and she was absolutely fascinated. It was so much fun talking to her. And there was a girl there that loved me. She looked like a model who hadn't had enough sleep for a long time or eaten for a long time. And she was very unhappy. Of course, she was in a psych ward, and she craved sweets. And you know me, I'm big. Of course, I like sweets too. And I was in a psych ward, and naturally I would be wanting my sweet that I got. But you know what? I remember my lemon cake. We would get lemon cake, and lemon is like one of my favorite cakes. Used to be my favorite. And I looked at that lemon cake and I thought, boy, she sure needs that cake. And I gave it to her. And she was so thrilled, but she didn't bother me for my cake. She wasn't like a dog that comes or a cat that comes and sits by you and wants it and wants it and wants it and waits and waits and waits. She wasn't like that. She was very cool about it and sophisticated and did not bother me and let me make the suggestion every single time. She never said, "Do you want that?" She was very cool about it, but she was very grateful. And I know that gave her joy. Some little bit of joy she had. And I remember the schizophrenic lady who thought I was talking about her, and we loved each other and were friends, and we're walking up and down the hallway holding hands talking, and she's saying, "You were talking about me behind my back." And I said, no, I would never do that. And she said, "Well, I think maybe you just didn't know what you were saying." And I thought, in her deepest mental illness, she is trying to make an excuse for me because she loves me. And that touched me so hard. What else happened there? Oh, there was a boy there that I loved. He was schizophrenic too. And he was flat of affect. And he seemed to not blink. And he was round, like me. And we were sitting in the day room with the techs, the psych techs, or whatever what their title is, I'm not quite sure. And they were on a break, I guess, or relaxing with us and visiting with us. I don't know which. It's not important. But they were saying things to him like calling him roly-poly and saying blink. And I was stunned. I had this hot, sick chill. And I said, and I wasn't as brave then. And I said, I feel like I'm in high school. And they said, why? And that was when they got hoofed. And I told them, I said, what you're doing is wrong. You are professionals. You are supposed to be acting professional and helping us, not mocking one of the patients. And they sat and they listened very quietly. And then the guy asked him, do you feel that way? And the guy said yes, and walked out very elegantly out of the room. And they sat there and didn't say a word. They didn't get up and flee because they weren't cowards. They just sat there and absorbed what I had told them and listened to it. Do you know what they could have done to me in a psych ward? They could have been afraid that I was going to go get them fired from the nurse. And they didn't do a thing to me. They were so kind. Everyone was so kind. And now I'm noticing it's been 22 minutes. And I think I am going to have to take an hour or more to download this. So I'm going to let you go. And if you listen to this whole thing, bless your heart. Would you please give me a like? Just take a second and flick the like button. And consider subscribing, because I'll have more to say. I always have more to say. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this was informative to you and maybe comforting. I love you, friend. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.